I'm so happy to have you joining me here tonight for another conversation. I'm joined by my guest who has become a regular. Please introduce yourself again. Let people know who you are.
Hi, my name is Deloma, Diddy to some, or Didiana if you're spicy. That's my intro.
Okay. I know we talked about having a special intro for Pleasure Paul. So thank you for working on it.
Does it still need work?
No. Thank you for working on it. And how do people know if they're special for Didiana?
I said if you're spicy.
Oh, spicy. Sorry.
Right.
Also, anybody who is spicy. Okay, got you.
Well, it's the other word, but maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, got you. Okay, so tonight we are talking about growing up, and growing up in similar-ish context when it comes to sex education or the absence or lack thereof. And I was curious, what actually prompted this was you posted the status with the meme. You posted a screenshot of your conversation with Mama, your mother, who is my aunt. And I was like, oh, this makes me think about all sorts of things. I don't know if you're comfortable with me telling people what the screenshot was. So the screenshot was... you sent her a meme saying, how does it feel?
Wait, I have to
you can find it.
Okay, so the conversation was, I sent her a meme that says, wonder how my mother feel having a daughter with her ass so big like the sun. So then she said, well, I always wished for an ass bigger than the sun. So then I was like, so you wished for me with the puppy eye emoji and the hug? And then she said, the Most High God of the cosmos did not bless me. He blessed you.
Okay, so that made me because I'm a person who... And perhaps this is, I don't know if it's from doing literature or whatever, but I'm always like connecting things. So it's like, I saw that and then I started to make connection to other things. And I was like, my aunt is a pretty open person. So I maybe made certain assumptions about like what happened in your household when it came to talking about sex and things like that. Sex, bodies, sexuality, all of that, because not everybody can talk to their parents about having a big bottom, right? So it was like and other associations with sensuality and all those kinds of things. So then I was like, I wonder what it was like growing up in a space where you could say certain things like that. So then I asked you, like, what was it like? And then you were kind of like, well, it wasn't. That ain't really what happened.
Okay, well, how I see it is two things. Sensuality, am I saying it correctly?
Yeah.
Sensuality and sex was two different
things. Right,
So when it came to, like, body confidence and, feeling yourself when you dress up, that's one thing. Sex is a different thing.
Yeah.
So when it came to like, when we would buy clothes, like she's not somebody who can say, oh, you can't put on that. That's
right.
a shot.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So she would kind of encourage you to like, dress however you want, to feel comfortable, to feel sexy. So that's the type of mother I had growing up. In terms of sex, now, if anybody knows Mama, she's very open, but I wouldn't say I would come to her and talk to her about sex, but maybe in terms of her sex life,
she might tell you.
Yeah. So we kind of learned some things from her, but to be honest, like I feel like when it came to sex, in terms of me learning about sex, I learned about sex from the internet.
Okay.
My dirty friend in high school, and my mom had some books, The Joy of Sex. So I used to kind of sneak and read those. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me first interject, as you were talking about, like body confidence and things like that. My mom, my aunt, to this day, she is the person who bought me the shortest skirt I ever wore. And it was like this. It was like a band. and I mean, yeah, like she was that kind of person, right? And I think she was also the kind of person where like you weren't shamed for what you wore. You weren't taught that like what you wore dictated your value or anything like that, or was an invitation for people to treat you any kind of way. It was really like, if you've got it, it was very like, if you have it, flaunt it.
Yeah.
I can't say I had it, but she was like,
I
flaunt the
guess
little you
you
have,
did.
flaunt the little you have still. So I appreciated that, and I don't know if we told Mama we were going to have this conversation tonight, but if you're listening, thanks for the inspiration. Yeah. Thanks for the inspiration. And yeah, I really was curious about, after growing up being raised by parents who grew up together, so it's like both of them had essentially the same upbringing. So just wondering what it was like in those different households, because in our house we didn't really talk about sex and things like that. I remember, sorry mommy, like reading Eric Jerome Dickey. It wasn't The Joy of Sex, but I read a lot of erotica.
Oh, yeah.
I read a lot of erotica, so it was like the curiosity was always there, and it was navigating a space where the information wasn't forthcoming to find the information that you wanted. So you said that the sex education or the information that you got was from the internet, your friends, and books like The Joy of Sex. So would you say that you got sufficient information about sex growing up? Like, was it a lot of good quality information?
I think for me, when it came to sex, I was very curious. Although I kind of think in terms of when I became sexually active, I would be like fifth form. So I consider myself to be a late bloomer. Nobody could tell me anything else. Fifth form, late bloomer. But in terms of my knowledge, in terms of reading up on sex, I don't know. I was just really interested. Like Cosmopolitan, I used to visit that every day.
Remember Bustle?
Bustle?
Okay,
No.
sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah, but
Cosmopolitan.
I loved Cosmopolitan. Like they would be talking, have these articles like flavored condoms, sex positions, sex position based on your zodiac sign, and all these things. Like I'm just taking all this information in, and oh, I forgot to mention. Like I think in high school too, we had a really good sexual education program. I don't know about much people, but in terms of when I went to high school, we had a good health and family life program. So you learned a lot about sex, like getting access to condoms, birth control, and those kind of things. So in terms of safe sex, that was always stressed. Even in my household. So I think what they would say, like I grew up in a naked household. So we were open, but I think maybe because my mother is so open, I used to just think it's weird to go to her. But, in casual overhearing conversations, you would learn about things. Yeah.
Okay. My high school experience, from what I remember, was very different. I remember that our sex education focused a lot on abstinence. I remember they used to have, I don't know if they have it still, I don't know if it was Abstinence Day or what, but they used to have these t-shirts that you could buy and wear, and for me it was just like a mufti. So I just remember all of these abstinence t-shirts, and I remember like abstinence because when we were in like first, second, I don't even know if it went up to third form, but I remember health and family life from first and second form. Some of the curriculum was taught by like very religious people. Some of it was taught by not so religious people, but people who had strong personal views about things. So I can't say that I was properly equipped to handle my sexual life from the way that I was, or the version of the health and family life curriculum that I received. But I'm happy that you had a different experience, because I realized that it very much depends on the teacher.
See, I was going
that
to
you get.
mention the teacher, but
Yeah.
I don't know if...
They don't want the name mentioned.
Well, I mean,
you don't
I
have to
think she
mention.
would mind, but yeah, maybe not. But
Yeah.
you know, I think in terms of how she explains sex, although you're curious to learn about sex, it never made me like, ooh, I want to go and try
Right.
sex. So that's the difference. So like when I say I was curious to understand what sex was.
Yeah.
But that didn't make me curious to want to try
Right.
sex.
Yeah. Yeah. And I 100% appreciate that you said that. And it's like a couple things, well, two things mainly. One is that because we grow up in these societies where we don't really talk about sex, and I don't want to say openly, I want to say honestly, like an accurate and sex positive conversation about sex, because we don't talk about sex openly. Like, you walk down the road, you are very likely to pass a conversation where people talking about sex, but it's talking about sex honestly, you know, giving people truthful information. And then the next thing too is, I think what a lot of like health and family life education teachers, counselors and so on, and teachers in general should recognize that they end up with, or maybe do, some of them, is children who are yearning for that information because they're not getting it elsewhere. So it's like you have that responsibility to provide them with that accurate information that they might not be receiving, you know, in spaces where they could or should be receiving it.
Right. Because I think it's so important for people to get access, not really just people, but teenagers, because you're going through a period of change, you're having hormonal changes, and you don't really understand your body and what's happening. And you know, you don't want them to be in a situation where they don't have the appropriate knowledge, like to even understand what having safe sex is, or having sex in a safe environment, consent. You know, these are all important layers to sex. Like, sex is not just the act itself. It's a lot more layers for them to understand, like the emotional side of things of sex.
Yeah. I also appreciate that you said, you know, the curiosity didn't necessarily mean that you were ready to take the step to have sex, because a lot of, and I've, you know, had this conversation a couple times with people. Same thing, how I feel like growing up, people always thought that if you give young people condoms, they're gonna go have sex. If you talk to them about sex, they're gonna go have sex. It's like the curiosities are natural and normal, you know, for that stage in people. Even younger children have different questions. Like, the first thing a lot of children that ask you is where babies come from, or how are babies made. So you want to be able to, like, age appropriately respond to a question like that. It doesn't mean that your 5-year-old is going to go attempt to make a baby, but it just means that there is that curiosity. And the thing about information and resources and so on, if we don't provide them, they can seek them out somewhere else, or they will just go without them. So it's like, do you want this person to be fully prepared, or are you willing to take the risk of their going out there blind and uninformed about, one, how people get pregnant? Because sometimes, like, people do get pregnant on their first time having sex because they didn't know like how pregnancy works, or they didn't know where to access condoms or how to use condoms properly and consistently and things like that. So it's like the information itself, the conversation itself isn't what prompts people, to have sex. Like, so part of that conversation is understanding where people are in their journey towards having sex, if they choose to have sex at all, because you might be curious, and then the curiosity, you're like, oh, this ain't sound like it's for me at all. Sometimes I watch like children of teenage mothers whose mothers were open with them like about their own experiences about sex and so on, and how they have very different lives because they decide, okay, well, I want XYZ, so I'm going to delay, having sex because that ain't in my future or whatever, or I want it to friend, like whatever. So it's like, it's the information that helps to prepare people for and help them to make the best decisions for them, and it's our duty to support that, like irrespective of how we might personally feel about the idea of young people having sex. Anyways, so you are and I know you didn't list your siblings in your education about sex, but you are the second to last of 5 children. And I'm very curious about the role that your older siblings played in teaching you about sex. And perhaps it wasn't when you were younger, perhaps it's as you got older.
So, okay, I'm thinking. I don't really and truly remember, like, I'm thinking like in my earlier years in terms of, when I became sexually active, I kind of was, I won't say sneaking, but it's not something like I was like openly sharing. But I think when my older sisters got the hints that, maybe I realized they started initiating and asking questions like, you and your boyfriend and, those kind of questions. But I think it was more from a space like they trying to see like, okay, is she informed? Is she, practicing safe sex? So it's like when they realize that, they're like, okay.
Okay. And I mean, no judgment for sneaking. I think most of us. Okay, let me not say most of us. I feel like I'm always making those kinds of statements. I think some of us definitely had to sneak, and this is from conversations. This is from mostly conversations. Conversations that I've had with people, other people's conversations that I've listened to, is sitting down in a little corner when nobody home to read a book, or it is staying up late to have a conversation with somebody that you can't have in the day, or is you go I think Andy Shirley is at prayer meeting or something, so it's like she's not listening, but it's like when you are when you go somewhere, let's say you go extra class or you go sports club or something, it's the extra 40 minutes that you take to get home. But it's like, the thing about these experiences is I could say this to 100 other people, and I'm sure a lot of them would be like, me too, right? So it's like, can we create a space where people don't say me too because they felt like they could openly say, hey, mommy, daddy, grandma, this is the stage that I'm at. And so that when you're looking for, when you're wondering why they're taking this extra time, like, where they are, because that's important, being able to locate your child.
Like, okay, I have a lot of thoughts coming to my head. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine who had a child in high school. So her child is now in high school. And she recently found out that, you know,
She's sexually active.
yes. And she, of course, there was disappointment there because I think like she was reflecting on her experience and maybe not wanting that for her daughter, which is understandable. But I told her, you know, more than anything, like we have to put ourselves in her shoes. And around her age, we were curious if these are the same things we were doing. The most important thing is that you just want to make sure that she is practicing safe sex, and again, doing this in a safe environment, which
Yeah.
she is consenting to. Now, I kind of always say like I grew up in a way where I didn't feel like I had much parental guidance. Not just say like they let you do as you want, but
Yeah.
it's pretty much what did I say, free range. It was kind of that.
Okay.
That's how I feel. So although the freedom was there, I just didn't
Yeah.
see the interest in it. But when I guess became interested in that, like although I wouldn't, you know, have open conversation with my mom or my sister about having sex, I wasn't ashamed to go to the Chinese and buy a pack of condoms. And I would still say, like, you know, my mom and my dad and everybody around me still did a good job in that because I had this sense of responsibility to be like, okay, well, if I buy my little boyfriend, I'll do that, you know, just to make sure, always have some on you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that was very brave because the thing is that and that's why I say about like information and resources and so. Because people don't have them doesn't mean they're not going to still do the thing. It's just that they're going to do the thing without the information and without the resources. So it's like, how can we ensure that our children are always equipped with knowledge and with the things that they need to help keep themselves and other people safe? So, yeah, whatever they did, you know, I guess in addition to like the health and family life education, you got to make you comfortable enough and not scared to that somebody would see you.
Remember, like, where I heard this from, but it was like, you're not ready to have sex if you're ashamed to buy condoms. But like, you also have to imagine, like, would you like not be embarrassed if you were pregnant? So I don't know, it's something like that.
Yeah.
So then it's like, basically, would you rather face the shame of buying condoms or the shame of being a teen mom? And I was like, well, I'm not gonna be a teen mom.
So you heard that and that made a difference.
So then I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you know.
Yeah. I think that there is a way because people have sex mainly because it's nice. Like it's an enjoyable thing to do. Reproduction is part of it. Like that happens. Reproduction is like an unfortunate. Sorry.
No, it's
I'm joking. Reproduction is a possible outcome of sex. But everybody doesn't have sex for the purpose of reproduction. And even people who have sex for reproduction might not always only have sex for reproduction. People have sex because it is pleasurable. So it's also like, how do we emphasize and value and validate that pleasurable purpose of sex that people are seeking, which is also why, like, you know, it's important to have conversations with children and young people around you about things like self-pleasure, because it's like people, that curiosity, you touch somewhere one day and you realize, oh, this feels good. And so it's like conversations about them in terms of where it is okay to do that, because like doing that in a public place or at school or, you know, at work and things like that are not appropriate, right? You want a private place where you can enjoy that. So it's like these are all human experiences, right? So it's how can we be honest about the fact of there being human experiences and engage with people, about them on that basis. So would you credit the internet as having the biggest influence on your sexual education journey?
The biggest? Probably, to be honest, because as I say, I'm somebody who if let's say I'm watching Tyra show and they talk about something and I'm like, ooh, what's that? So, you go on Google and you're searching and you see all these articles so probably the internet. And I mean, I'm thinking now, in the age where for the younger generation, everything is digital, even school assignments, everything. And sex is so easily accessible. So I could see them probably going to the internet really as a source now.
Yeah. And I've seen I follow a couple sex educators on Instagram. I'm on TikTok to consume mainly funny videos, but I've seen sex educators on TikTok as well. So people are trying to infuse spaces like that with the kind of information that people should have. So I appreciate that. So it's not like you can only access pornography for information about sex, the kinds of conversations you might be having in person, you can also find them online and find people who are relatable, so it's you could find people of all ages talking about sex, talking about sexuality, talking about sensuality, and all of those. Yeah.
Something, I don't know why this thought came to my head, but I was thinking to myself, if I think about sex more that I'm older, or if I thought about sex more when I was younger. And to be honest, I feel like I think about sex more the older I got than younger. What do you think? How
about myself? I thought you were going to say the opposite, because I feel for me, and that's the thing about curiosity that's unfed or unmet, right? And the same thing, the more you tell somebody no something is, the more they're curious about it. Why is this forbidden? I gotta investigate.
I'm not saying 24/7 it's on my mind, but I think because now I'm an adult, and there's no shame. So of course, when I meet up with my friends, this is what we talk about. So it's. Yeah, I lost my train.
No, I hear you. I have a different experience. I think that when it was either inaccessible or accessible but in secret, because that's really what went on for a couple of years, it was every opportunity. Any moment, free time, yes, this. I was really curious. I acted on that curiosity, and then I took a break. I was not quite,
it's
because
overrated.
And it's I think that's why I'm a lot of people think that your first sexual experience has to be terrible, and I don't believe that. It doesn't have to be at all. It there might be some discomfort and things like that, but you talked about the safe environment, the person that you are doing it with, you can make it as pleasurable as possible. It doesn't have to be this traumatic experience where then you feel I had to rest this tongue for years and then revisit it. But I feel no, that's like what it is, out of sight, out of mind. Like, it's very out of sight, out of mind for me. Now that I can well, like, for example, now my mother, every opportunity, she's like, grandchild, grandchild, grandchild. And I'm like,
Really?
people have people have children. Like, it's having sex. So this is you acknowledging that it's okay for us to at least be clear about this. Whereas before, like, we would have never talked about
Right.
baby. Like, even when they were discouraging you from having sex, and it's like they never came out and said, I discourage you from having sex. It's just like they controlled your time so that you didn't have like time to do things like that. Like, if they saw you like around boys and things like that, it would be like and so and so it's so they never like actually like used literal words necessarily to make you not, but like it was there. And now it's like the same thing you was wanting me to not do, you wanted me to do. But like yeah,
I think for me, when it comes to sex, like, when I say I think about it more, like, it's kind of like I view it as part of my life now.
Yeah.
So it's not like a hidden secret I can't talk about.
Yeah.
So it's normal to me.
Yeah.
What I would say is, like, sex for me back then to now is like completely different.
Absolutely.
Completely different experience based on knowledge and everything. Now my emotional understanding, my boundaries as well, completely different. I would definitely say I enjoy sex more in my older years, but I'm trying to think, like, how can I relate it to what you're saying? Because although we're first cousins, yes, I think our experience with sex and sex openness, because I would guess maybe my household was more like the naked household, but at the same time, it's not like, we out here talking with business, but it still feels safe enough that at least if you're in a scary situation, that you have a support system around you. So it was maybe one of those kind of dynamics, and I guess maybe just as I got older, like, I felt more comfortable to explore that side. Well, my mom just asked for grandkids, but it's different now, because now you're able to look at their situation and be like, maybe having a child in your 20s is not the way to go. Maybe you need to find a partner who you're really committed to, and who you're absolutely sure would, be around and help you raise a child. Like, this is what you need to do. Find the appropriate partner. Then we could discuss kids. So I think it's more that.
Yeah, I hear that. I think too that I don't know if I remember like ever going to them necessarily, but I think the benefit of having things like older cousins is that you could kind of be like they could kind of see you with like a little boyfriend or whatever, and they would let you go like do your thing with your little boyfriend because they understand, and they would cover for you, they would make themselves available to pick you up or whatever. So I think that was like a benefit for me of having.
Oh, so do you say a good thing, Carl?
No, not like
get that.
no. Sorry, no. don't get after them. No, but I feel like there were like couple times, like, cause after that point, well, for a couple of years, my mother, she wouldn't let me go anywhere by myself. I was still youngest, like first form, you're just in high school and you're getting a glimpse of like adolescent life, but you ain't really reached there yet. So it's like I remember her sending me places with, Zaberry, Cheyenne and Hugo, and like you got music fest and so with them, and you be like, I'm coming back.
Stick a pin there,
Yeah.
right? How do you feel about kids going to music festivals now? In today's
How we
music
reached this is a real big pin that you want to stick.
Yes, because
yeah.
for me, I went to music fest. I went to music fest Friday night. It's a different environment to when I went. My first music fest I did it in third form, and I went with Cheyenne. That's my older sister, and that was the music fest with Neo, Michael Bolton, Big Boy, Janelle Monáe. That was when she was just
Janelle Monáe was here. I remember Janelle
brought
Monáe.
her out. She wasn't like an artist.
Starting.
Yes, I
Okay.
remember she was part of Big Boy.
They should bring back Janelle Monáe. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
we digressing.
I was thinking like music fest back then was a more family friendly environment. Like it was normal for people to bring their kids. But to me, music fest has turned into it's like a concert. So it's kind of seen like carnival. So we let the kids go on their own with their groups of friends. But this music fest, I feel like when it comes to alcohol consumption, that's mainly what is served at the bar. Nobody really drinking a soft drink. We now have smoking so widely, it's part of our community now. So would you say like this is a child-friendly atmosphere? Also, like, of course you always will have like Red Cross there distributing condoms, and I'm not saying anything is wrong, but now it's more apparent like they're handing them out. So I'm like, is this like a safe environment for kids?
I went to my first music fest, I think I was 12, so younger than you. I think I was 12, and I think I went this Sunday night, and that was Percy Sledge. I can't remember who else was there, but that time they had the Sunday night, and the Sunday night was like some of them older R&B love songs people and gospel music. So that was my introduction to Music Fest. And then I think the next year, I'm not sure if I went more than the Sunday, and the Sunday night I went with my mother. And the next year and years to come, I think I remember going more nights, and I think I remember a Sunday night being with another of my friends whose parents let her go on the Sunday night. But and that time it was like they used to have craft vendors selling different things and so it was and the Sunday night used to be kind of scanty. So if you wanted to spot your child, you're gonna spot your child. So that was one thing, right? Like the size of the crowd was different, and I think the attendees were also different. I feel like Music Fest now feels like a party, and the artists are different. I mean, we used to still have like dance hall and them kind of artists there and so, but I don't know. I think that, like I said, my introduction to Music Fest was Percy Sledge and gospel music, so it wasn't like I wasn't thrown into Vibes Cartel or any of them. So, and I think that makes a difference. So I tried to figure out like how to answer the question. I definitely think that there have to be controls on it. I think the nature of the event is changing. Like I said, I feel like it feels like a party. Before, like all them early years when I used to go, drinking didn't seem like such a big part of Music Fest, but no, everybody got them big bucket cups of alcohol. Before it was like everybody was drinking Ting and Pedrella and soft drinks, but no, it's like bars with alcohol, like a huge part of it. And as you rightly said, they've introduced smoking now, even though I feel like, people still need to be walking through, seeing who's consuming what. But I cannot how do they like do that in the crowd to ensure that people underage are not consuming what they're not supposed to be consuming? So that will require probably a greater police presence. Maybe eventually they will have to start carding people, so you have to walk with your ID places. And I think there's so much that can happen at Music Fest now. Like, a lot of the risks that exist didn't exist or to that extent then, that people really need to pay attention to when it comes to their children. For example, my mother wasn't gonna let me find me way to Music Fest or find me way back from Music Fest. So your child, like, even, and that was, you know, I mean, even when we were older and we could have drove, like, she was still dropping us because it was a matter of packing or whatever. And then she still had to wake up 5 o'clock to come pick us back up. So, I mean, I think that worked for everybody, because then it was like, okay, you go do whatever, but you have to meet back here so we know where people are, and you have to check in every so often. So I think, like, that we have to be a lot more not afraid, cause I'm a kind of afraid person, but I think sometimes, like, naivety takes over, and we think that some things can't happen that are very real possibilities. So,
and I guess I just brought it up because, like, me going to Friday Night Music Festival, I'm really seeing
all them children.
Yeah,
you never used to have so much children there turning up your photo, but no. But they're also at parties
right.
too. Like,
and I mean, of course, I like that they introduce, like, you know, smoking areas to events, and I feel like this year it was a bit more relaxed, so they allowed you to kind of smoke throughout the venue. Not necessarily a bad thing for me, but then I mean, I still have to think that I'm an adult in this community and I'm seeing all these kids around, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I mean, I'm just coming to a point where I think that although, yes, Music Fest is supposed to be like, you know, things for the community, maybe we're really going to have to put an age restriction if we're going to have certain things available. And I really don't think it's becoming like a safe, child friendly, like, at least I'm thinking, if I was a parent, if I'm going to allow my child to go to Music Fest, I have to be there. Like, I just can't see me having my child wander off with a group of friends. Like, I need to be
there.
Yeah, because even at the bars, like, nobody is checking for ID. Like, the bars are so crowded. It's like, hurry up, pass your money, and
and you could also have people buy drinks for you,
right? And could you imagine? Like, I'm just thinking, if I mean, I was a good teenager. I was a good child growing up. So, but I'm pretty sure, like, if we could all chip in and get one of those big buckets that they serve as the cups of alcohol.
That's probably, what happened in some cases.
So, you know, just be a little careful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, I mean, all of these things require conversations and relationships with your children about, like, what is real out there in the world, and is either that, I mean, so I went to Music Fest early because Music Fest at the time was, I feel like, less of a party and more of like
a concert.
Like, to me, like, I want to say good, clean fun, but like kind of, although it wasn't, so like when I went, it wasn't 200 other 12-year-olds there. I was like maybe one of 3 who were with their parents. So it's like over time the age, I think, has gotten a little younger, and the number of them has expanded. But even like when I went to my first Juve, I feel like 16.
Like your first Juve, like you partaking buying your true.
No, the first time I went to town during Juve, and my mother dropped me off. I don't know, big t-shirt, and she dropped me up to meet Shanna and Hugo them, and she dropped me off at like 8 o'clock. So all of the shenanigans that happened in the early morning, I missed those. And that was like, this is how old you are, and this is, I feel like, the part that I am okay with. You know, you're experiencing. This is what is okay for someone your age. And then later on, when I was like in CFBC and I went and joined the troop, I remember this picture of me that somebody took, and I'm standing in the middle of like these adults drinking, and I look so scared. And I still because it's like, it was like a shock for me. And the thing is, some people experience that shock and kind of don't participate. Some people experience this shock and kind of overdo. So it's like, they're like, oh, I've never seen this before. Let me, you know, consume everything that is around me, as opposed to like, let me ease in or take my time.
And you see, that's what scares me. Like, maybe I just never had the interest to really do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, growing up free range, as I would say,
it was all day if you wanted it.
Yeah, but I guess eventually I kind of, you know, got interested in that. But, you know, I never went to CFBC college parties. I was pretty lame, you know, but no, I think when I started to work and I had a cat, I was like, okay, let's
see what's out there.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I stepped into it. But I know that there are younger people who, if given access, they dive in full straight ahead in. And that's what scares me. Because as a parent, you're not around. And I mean, they are around adults.
Yeah.
So adults who could easily take advantage of kids in these situations. So, you know, that's just kind of what made me a bit. Because even if, you know, in those situations, even as much knowledge as the child could have, keep in mind they're around people in a dangerous environment now. So it's like, how can they navigate these situations?
Yeah, and at that degree, because Music Fest this year had like, you could barely move around in the crowd, and so you definitely couldn't stand away and spot nobody, see nobody, things like that. So I definitely think that we could do a lot more to protect the young people around us, and that's, you know, the home, what happens in the home is a huge part of that, and the protection that parents provide is a huge part of that. The wider community can, but to be honest, when I at Juve trying to enjoy myself, and chewing around me, tying up my foot, you know, is obviously like 13-year-olds, and so trying to dance on you, and they're out from 3 a.m. and so like I can't help but be a little concerned. Anyways, just like a whole I think that we might have to, like, sometimes we're norms and, you know, individual actions aren't effective or aren't happening at all. Laws and so have to step in, regulations to do something, because
I just, you know, try to throw more kid friendly.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a huge part of it is the absence of things for children, young people to do. I feel like there were more things available to us to do growing up. Like I was telling my mother the other day about when they used to have Grand Market. I mean, if you ever went to a Grand Market, I think it didn't have Grand Market. It used to be behind the old Treasury building. I think around like Christmas time. That was like a mixed age thing, but it used to have a lot of young people. So it was safe enough for people to be there. But year round, having enough like events that young people can go to, whether those are theater and art productions, whether it's sports, whether it is movies. I feel like we went movies, done the old movies a lot.
Well,
And
they have Caribbean cinemas.
yeah, true. But I feel, I don't know. I think a lot of the movies is like, because I find a lot of the movies are either children's movies or adults movies. So not necessarily in between. So it also has to do with like the kinds of movies people are making now. When I went to Bastille High, like Bastille High often had activities going on, like potpourri, this. Like schools had a lot going on, the communities had a lot going on that young people could participate in. But now it's like all that really happens is parties. So then they end up there and yeah.
Just that's an idea we're throwing out to some promoter, to make.
Yeah, I know there's a girl that has a kids club. Is that what it's called? With some children and young people, and they do different activities. It's not a huge thing, but I definitely putting it out there for schools, communities, and so to do more that young people can get involved in, like fun that's appropriate for teenagers. Not to like pretend that that is what the rest of their life will be, but to be like when you're a child, like you want to have a childhood, like your childhood shouldn't feel like adulthood, because then when you reach adulthood, it's like, yeah. So we have completely digressed, which is okay. It's okay. I had a question here about becoming the sex icon that you are today.
Sex icon? Okay, explain in your mind.
I mean, I had it in there, but I put it in those words because I wanted you to laugh. But we kind of at the end of the show too. So let us wrap it up here. I mean, there are a lot of us who grow up in homes where sex isn't talked about at all, or openly or honestly, and a lot of us have had to navigate, those spaces to find our ways to safer sex, to find our ways to pleasurable sex, to become people who see those things as like necessary and important. So what advice would you give to anyone who is listening, who is on probably a lot of people, including a lot of adults, who are still like unlearning and relearning a lot of the things that we learned or didn't learn in our youth? What advice would you give to people who are navigating this context where they maybe didn't have the information that they needed and trying to grow sexually?
Don't be ashamed that you're curious about sex. We mentioned earlier like different resources that we had, but I do think the internet clearly is the most accessible. So you would just need to make sure that wherever you're searching for or getting information about sex, it's informed. I don't know if maybe you have particular websites that you could suggest. Would I recommend Cosmopolitan?
No, probably not. No, probably not.
But
no.
I could see maybe tools like, of course, I keep mentioning ChatGPT. I could just imagine maybe as a teen, if you're curious and you're asking Chat certain questions that, I think that there might be a more reliable source than something like Cosmopolitan.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, there are different resources that I like. I used to like, I liked this page, but I don't know, I think they kind of stopped functioning, this page called Afrosexology, because I also like learning about things from people who look like me, because I feel like they understand.
And they can more identify with what you're going through by a cultural.
As well as like the nuances of the experience, the histories of the experience, because as black people, first of all, our histories with sexuality are different, and the ways that we talk about sexuality are different because of how we were portrayed, sexually during the height of things like slavery. I was gonna say during racism, but anyways, the racist depictions of black people, how we were hypersexualized and things like that. There's this sex educator, Shan Budram, that I like. She's on YouTube. And there are lots more sex educators like Badgesteam on Instagram. I just like go on Instagram. Badgesteam, yeah. And just search or you could go on Google and search sex educators on Instagram and find them there. You could do the same for TikTok. And a lot of those government kind of websites Planned Parenthood isn't government, but I mean organizations or agencies plus governments the NHS from the UK and different websites like that. Planned Parenthood, as I mentioned. There are websites that talk about sexual violence and rape and so on and provide that kind of information. And I find that, lots of them are helpful. And a lot of what you learn and unlearn can also be from conversations with friends who are on similar journeys as you. So those would be some of the resources that I recommend. And just a reminder that you're not doing this by yourself. All of us grew up in this space where we heard a lot of the same things and learned similar or were taught similar things about sex and developed similar attitudes around sex from people who received basically the same kind of education that we did, which was kind of no education at all, or education which was rooted in trying to protect you, because it's we see that this isn't this outcome can potentially change your life forever, so we want a different outcome for you, and they didn't necessarily know how to do that without being definitely not have sex. So it's you can apply understanding to the situation and still be I get where you are coming from, but I am at the stage of my life where I see things differently and I want to do things differently. So I would encourage you to, you said, don't be afraid to explore. Don't be ashamed. And
to seek, advice. Information. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right.
All of the things that you couldn't comfortably or openly, when I say openly, I mean without hovering over the computer or using incognito, you can feel free to openly search them now, now that you are growing up. So I wish that for you. And thank you for joining us tonight for this conversation on growing up curious about sex, but not really being encouraged. When I say encouraged, I don't mean your parents say, go have sex. But I mean, not, growing up curious about sex and finding our ways to feed that curiosity and to become the to learn more, to in our search for becoming more informed and so on. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and as usual, it was a pleasure having you here. Pleasure Pulse is a safe space where no topic is too big or too small. I wish you a pleasurable evening and say goodbye until next Tuesday. Bye.